Ronnie, thanks for taking time to do this video for the museum. We wish you could be at Lost Speedways, but if you're going to be in Florida on vacation, we'd all like to be there with you.
I appreciate it, Ron. Racing takes up so much of our time through the whole season that it's hard to fit a vacation in. And when I can, we take advantage of it, and we do. And it happens to fall this week. And sorry I couldn't be there, but I'm happy to be able to do this interview for everybody.
Condolences on the loss of your dad. He was a great racer, but more importantly, he was a great friend to a lot of people in the racing community.
Yeah, when all that happened and he passed, he's still just my dad, and we were very sad, and we knew that day was coming, and I never dreamed in my wildest dreams there would be the response that there was, and all the people that reached out, and the condolences from so many hundreds or thousands of people that did. It's kind of overwhelming, and it's probably taken until now for it to settle in and really hit me, and look back and reflect on it. And as I spend time now, I just think about all the different people that did, and it really touches my heart, and it shows the person he was, not only in the race car, but I think outside the race car too. And I think that's something we're all proud of the person he really was.
Racing's the family business. Your grandfather, your uncle, your brother-in-law Andy, your father, and of course you. Was there ever any doubt that you'd be a racer too?
No, not really. It took me a while to be able to get the opportunity to race. I started a little late. I think I was 22 or 23 years old before I did. I raced go-karts when I was a kid with my Uncle Jeff and learned a lot and the fundamentals of how to prepare to race. But I never had a doubt. It's something I dreamed of. I can remember being a little kid pretending I was Jack Johnson. I was a fan, and he was my hero just like a lot of other people. I can remember putting his helmet on maybe in the house and putting his gloves on and just trying to get a feel for what it was all about. So honestly, I never had a doubt that I wanted to be a racer. Just finding the right opportunity, I think, was more of it.
When did you first know your dad wasn't just a racer, he was a superstar?
It's funny. When I went to Fonda opening day, they asked me that question, and it's kind of weird. As you're a little kid, I grew up. My father was already racing before I was born, and I think I was born in '73, and I think he started racing in the mid '60s sometime. So as it evolved, at first I didn't like it. I'd go into the pit area after the races, and I was a race fan. I was a little kid, and I seen all these people giving my dad attention, and maybe I was jealous. I don't really know, but I do have memories of that, and I didn't like it. But as time went on, I realized he was something special, a hero to a lot of people, including myself. And as time evolved, I became proud of him and started to understand who he was and what it was all about.
By then, you'd missed all the wildness. When he started out, he was a wild man. Tony Villano always said he had his right foot right out through the radiator.
Yeah, what's funny too? As time evolved, Tony would come to the race shop probably when I was a teenager or a young kid, and I got to know Tony, and he would always tell me how my father was wild and crazy, and drove the wheels off the race car and put him broke, as he would say, and it's just a lot of good memories, and just looking back at it, just.
A lot of guys go through that phase. They have to get to seat time. You were pretty smooth, but you knew how to race before you started by watching your dad and Bob McCready and guys like that.
I think one of the advantages I worked on the race cars ever since that time I was maybe 10 years old. So by the time I got in a race car, I understood the fundamentals of it, how it worked, how to prepare for it. The hardest part for me was driving the car. Preparing to race and understanding the race car was the easy part. Fortunately for me, it came fast. I ended up winning my second race I ever raced in, probably because of that. When I went there, I had the best prepared race car in the sportsman division. Learning to drive, that was a whole nother topic.
Before we started, we were talking about when you were in school. I was a teacher. I would have loved to have had you in class. But I was thinking, did the other kids in school know that you were Jack's son? There's probably a lot of CD Coville T-shirts going up and down the hall, too.
Yeah, I was probably the shyest kid you ever met when I was in school, and I kind of just put my head down and kept to myself. And I do remember kids coming up to me and saying, is your dad really Jack Johnson? And a lot of times I put my head down and shake my head no, because I didn't know how to react. I don't know what grade, maybe my first grade's class picture. A friend of mine, Ricky Egnor, he actually is wearing a orange 12A T-shirt in our class picture. So it was just strange. It was a way growing up, and I didn't maybe know how to handle it at that time. Today I look at it differently, and I learned who my dad was as I grew up.
You made a lot of trips with your dad. Did you learn on the way home, him dissecting the race? I did this, I should have done that.
Yeah, it was kind of a joke. When we would get in a truck and go to the races when I was a little kid, JoJo and Joey and my father and the guys, they would tell me I'm limited to 3 questions, because I would ask questions from the time we got in the truck to the time we got to the racetrack, and vice versa when we got home. And I got to ask a lot of questions to my dad and pick his brain and learn all the different scenarios and all the different things he went through and why this happened or why that happened. And I was very fortunate to be able to ride in the truck and ride with him and go to all the races I did.
Tim McCready did that with Barefoot Bob. Both of you guys turned out pretty well.
Well, I don't know about that. On Timmy's end, yes. He's really doing something unbelievable. I watch him on MAV TV and see what he's doing with that late model. Timmy's really something special. But we did grow up a lot of the same way and got to go to the racetracks together, and we had similar lives growing up, and we both got to watch our dads, and I think it helps us both now at the levels that we're racing at.
Did your dad encourage you to race, or did he just let you figure that out on your own?
He didn't encourage me to race, but sometimes my father had a way of speaking without speaking. I think he, deep in his heart, wanted me to race. Without speaking, he encouraged me. But I also think he knows that there's another side to life. There's a lot of sacrifices you make in life for racing, and I think he let me, sort that all out. But he knew deep in his heart that I loved racing, and it's something I wanted to do. And he supported me from day one with it. So I'm thankful for that.
You've told me a couple times what he told you about life. I quoted you in the magazine story recently about being humble and all that. You remember that?
Yeah, like I told you before, probably the most important things he taught me in life had nothing to do with racing. Racing's something we do and something we love, but in the real scheme of things, there's a lot more to life than that. And, he just taught me how to conduct myself and treat people and be humble and be kind to others, and don't think you're any better than anybody else, because one of his always sayings, if you think you're good, there's somebody better. If you think you're good, there's somebody better. If you think you're tough, there's somebody tougher. That's kind of some of the things that his sayings he would always have play back in my brain today, and I try to live by them.
He told you about life. Did he tell you about racing? When you came in, did he critique you?
I don't know if he critiqued as much as he would give me advice. Sometimes I would do things that he didn't agree with. But I have a way of being a hardhead, and I would go do it my way. And sometimes he'd say, go do it and feel it. And I think you're wrong, but you'll find out. So he guided me his way, I guess. Sometimes my father would let you take enough rope to hang yourself, and then we get back sometimes, and he'd be able to say, I told you so, or whatever. But I think it's like that in life. He had a way of teaching his own way, and I'm fortunate to be able to be taught by him.
A lot of times when a star's son starts to race, everybody hates them because they figure they're starting out. They got the best equipment. They got all the knowledge in the world. So that's kind of a tough place to be.
You want to know the truth? It really wasn't. When I first started, I had a white car with a red number 7 on it, which was a color and a number that my grandfather had probably back in the 50s with a sprint car that he drove. I didn't have my name on the race car, and my father told me to go race, don't talk about yourself, and just go park somewhere where nobody sees you. And he always lived by the motto of, if you do the right things, people will recognize who you are. And that's kind of the way I approached it. And I remember going to the racetrack and just doing it that way, not having my name on the car, no orange at all on the car, and just going racing, doing our thing.
Was it an old 12A or did you start fresh?
It was actually a home-built car that a guy by the name of Roger Lawton built with my father the previous season, and Bernie Regals built an engine for it, and the engine blew up or broke, and Bernie fixed it over the winter, and then the car kind of got stripped a little bit because my father needed some of the parts for another car. And as the spring of 1997 came along, my father said, hey, there's an opportunity. If you want to race, go get the pieces you need and fix that car. Get with Bernie and see if he'll put the engine back in the car and go race. And all within like a month, that's what I did. And we worked at it. He gave me some of the stuff to start it with. I'm going to say probably 50%, and then I had to go hustle the rest. And that's how it all started for me.
Now, how about your father's big secret? He knew how to get around Fonda better than anybody in the world. Did he share that with you?
Well, it's funny. When I first started racing, my second year I started racing at Fonda. After the first couple months, I really hated Fonda. It was probably it was the most difficult racetrack I ever went to. And I remember coming to him and say, Dad, I hate this place. I want to go back to Malta. And at that point, he started to walk me around and give me different tips. And at first, he said, just go out there and race and see how you feel. And by the end of that season, we won our first modified feature at Fonda. And he just talked me into little tricks and little things about how to just enter the corner. Fonda's a unique racetrack, as we all know, and it's something he mastered. But also, somebody can tell you how to do it, but doing it's another thing. And I was fortunate to be able to come home every day and be able to bounce off of him what might have happened the night before or whatever. And he definitely helped me at Fonda.
Everybody used to think they were hugging the infield going into turn 3, and there'd be a big roar, and your dad would go by on the inside, left front tire hiked up over the berm. He looked like he wasn't even working. How do you think he'd fare today, the way the track is?
My father, I'm not bragging about him, but he was a born race car driver. I watched him race, for as long as I can remember. If he was of the age today and healthy, I think he could wheel a race car in today's modern era with anybody.
Your dad won everywhere, but Fonda was his place. Did he ever tell you what it meant to him? And do you think he appreciated what all the people thought about him? The fans there adored him, but I don't know if they ever told him that.
My father wasn't one to talk about himself a lot, but I know by his personality and his body language that he loved and adored all his fans and all the people at Fonda, and the place was something very special to him, and it was for many years, and it will be forever, at least in our family. And I know he knew what Fonda meant to him, and he meant to Fonda at the same time.
Between him and Louis and Leip, they didn't leave too many features for anybody else.
No, fortunately for me, I got to see a lot of Dave Leip and a lot of my father. Louis' heydays was kind of before my time. I got to see Louis win some of his last races. Them three are something special at Fonda. They won a lot of races there, and but they dedicated their whole lives to racing, all three of them, and in their own special little way. My father's at the top of my hero list, but they're all heroes of mine in the same way, I guess.
your dad had what appeared to be, let's put it that way, a pretty even temperament. He showed up, he'd tell Bob McCready a couple jokes and get in and go out and race. But underneath, sometimes he was all cranked up. I remember years ago I did a Stock Car magazine story about your dad, and all he wanted to talk about was all the crybabies. They were complaining because he was winning too much. Do you remember that?
Yeah, actually, I have a whole slew of magazines and articles and clippings and photo albums of my dad, and I've actually read that article multiple times, Ron, and it was an awesome job. I was probably a 10-year-old kid when you did it, and I do remember why he said what he said, because if anybody started with nothing, it was him. Nobody gave him nothing. He started from dirt, and he worked for everything he got. And then when he finally got to where he was, his dominant years, a lot of people whined, and they thought Jack had this or Jack had that, but it wasn't the truth. He did it the old-fashioned way, and I think at that time in his career, he might have been a little irritated with people that were whining. I remember the article.
He was more than a little irritated. Do you remember when the Thruway Bridge went down? That's the most agitated I saw your dad when he was telling me he went over there on his way to Weedsport, saw orange down in the bottom. He thought it was the speed shop truck and you were in it. He was scared to death.
What's funny? I can't relate. I remember the day I was in the other truck, the orange truck, and I went over to the Thruway Bridge probably maybe 10 minutes before he got to it. And in between, I don't know if I'm going to tell the story right, but we left at the same time, and my mother forgot my father's driving suit, and they had to turn around and go home and get it. So there was probably like a 10-minute delay between the truck I was in and the truck he was in. And we went to Weedsport. We went over the bridge. When my father got to the bridge was out. And, it was a real scary moment for everybody. But in my mind, I don't know it. We went to the racetrack, and, you never know in life what's going to be thrown at you. And that was a scary day for everybody.
What I got out of it was how much he thought of you. Couple names. Bob McCready. Your dad and Bob McCready were real good friends.
They had a special relationship. Actually, it's a lot of things that now reflect on me and teach me how to race. My father and Bob were friends, and I've seen my father crash Bob and spin him out and wreck him. And Bob never come over and yelled, never screamed and yelled, and he took it like a man. Then a year later, my father could be leading a race, and Bob got into him and spun him out. And my father took it like a man and never cried and never screamed and yelled, and they went on to the next race. And throughout the years of them racing, they've won together, they've crashed together, they've loaned each other things, and I think the respect level that the two of them had was second to none. And, my father's later years when he was not healthy and, we were struggling to get him around, Bob drove down and visited him, and Bob couldn't keep a dry eye. It really touched him. And I talk to Bob every so often, and I know he loved my father, and my father loved Bob also, and they just had a special bond and two special people.
Going back to Bob McCready, I called him to get a quote when I did the last magazine piece about your dad. He said, Jack was a man's man. Women loved him, men respected him, and he could really wheel a race car. How did Bob do? I think he described your dad pretty well.
I'm proud of my father, and I don't want to sound like I'm boasting, but I think Bob nailed it. I couldn't describe my father any better, and I'm proud of the person he was, and I think that's spot on.
I was thinking about who else to ask you about, and it came to my mind right away. The Superman, C.D. Coville. A lot of people thought he and your dad hated each other. Actually, they didn't. And when I had Clarence at the museum here talking about your dad, when he came back to Fonda and kept him from winning his record number of features, Clarence was right on the edge of crying. He said if he could give one race back, he'd have let your dad win that one, except he never let anybody win easy.
I don't know if CD let anybody win. You know, I like I said, I grew up in a great era. I got to watch CD race most of his in the prime of his career. You know, I was probably a 10, 12, 14-year-old kid. He was something special too. My father and him had two opposite driving styles, two opposite ways they did it, but they were both very good at what they did, and I think they both respected each other. They raced each other hard. All the things, you know, people would say that they hated each other was the furthest thing from the truth. Their fans hated each other, but I think that's what made it exciting, and I got to grow up with it. And there was a period of time, one of my good friends at the races was Peter Coville, who was CD's son, and me and him would go up and you know, run around in the stands and sit in the bleachers and watch the races and do things and see the fans of our fathers fighting and brawling and doing all this crazy stuff. It was an exciting way to grow up for probably a 10 or 12 year period of time.
Friday night at Malta, seemed like half the jackets there were orange, the other half were red and blue for Clarence.
Yeah, I got fond memories of that, you know, and they put on a show. It was exciting, and if you got to go to the races in that era and see the two of them race, it was very exciting.
Another thing you and I've talked about before, you won one of the triple 20s at Syracuse. I saw your dad pull up, park his car, get out on a dead run. He came to see you. What did he say?
My father wasn't a smoke blower. You know, he just didn't, you know, he would tell you the way it was. And I remember winning that triple 20, and as I got out of my car, he was there. And he walked up, he looked at me dead in the eyes, and he gave me his old-fashioned handshake. With, you know, he would shake your hand. He knew he'd get your attention with his handshake. And he looked at me dead in the eyes, and he said, "Good job." He nodded his head, and he turned around and walked away. That was it, and that's his style. I mean, he just he believed in speaking without speaking, I guess. And I knew where he was coming from, and I knew what he meant. And I think that's why him back to Bob McCready, I think that's why the two of them got along so good, because they were both a man's man. They knew how to take it like a man or give it like a man, and it's just the way it was. And I hope to think I carry on the same way and not whine and cry. And if the night goes bad for me, I take it like a man. And if I have to give it out, I feel like I can give it out like a man too and not cry and whine about it.
What I liked about the two of them, they could be all upset about how the race finished, but if I want to get a quote from them, they could turn the switch off, stop, talk to me a minute, and then go right back to ranting and raving at somebody.
You know, my father, there's certain things he taught me in life, and it's not just from racing, you know, and it's not somebody else's fault you had a bad night. So when somebody approaches you, they have a mindset of they're coming up to talk to their hero or their favorite race car driver or whatever. And at that moment, you need to shut it off and conduct yourself the right way, and just the way it is. But today I see a lot of ranting and raving going on and temper tantrums, and I see it on TV with some of the NASCAR people, and it makes me not have respect for some of them. I'm not going to tell you who I like and don't like. I think you can figure that out. But I like their style of how you're supposed to be, and it reflects on the person you are in life in general.
A lot of people tell me that Stuart Friesen is today's Jack Johnson. How do you feel about that?
I would say anything but 100%. If I told you anything differently, I'd be lying. I mean, Stu is something special. I race with him. I've raced with him for quite a while now, and he is gifted. He really knows how to drive a race car. He knows how to work on his car, which I think is an important thing today. I mean, I see Stu. He understands what's going on with that race car. He gets dirty, meaning he gets his hands dirty and gets in there and does it. We were at Albany, Saratoga last week, and he was in my trailer asking me some questions and borrowing a spring from me, and I watched him run over his car, and he got down and got dirty and did it. That's how my father did it. So when I look at Stu and I tell him this, I'm not too proud to tell him he's the best there is right today, and he reminds me of my father, and I'm proud to be able to tell him that.
How does his path around Fonda compare to your dad's line?
Well, I think the race cars have changed and evolved differently through the years. Um, Stewart could put that car in different places on that racetrack that nobody else does, kind of like my father could do. But I think the race cars are a little different today, and so if you can compare race cars of then to race cars today, he gets around Fonda better than anybody there is. Sometimes I get a video and I try to watch him and see what he's doing, and it's not all his race car. I mean, I can tell you, Stu can get in probably everybody else's race car and get more out of it than they can. He has an incredible talent, and something about that racetrack at Fonda and him, he's really got something going there right now, and it's not all just his car. He can wheel it.
You make a good point. Your dad started with leaf springs and 50-50 Monroe shocks. To change the car, you put a half a turn in the wedge bolt. You might have put a new tire on every couple of weeks. So it is an entirely different world.
Yeah, these cars are so different today. And even in the last amount of years, I would say to my father, you can't believe, you move a coil not an eighth of an inch or a 16th of an inch, and it makes a difference. And he would tell me I'm crazy because they would put 4 turns in a bar or a coil or whatever to make a difference. The race cars have evolved, and I think technology's taken over. And it's like anything in life. I'm sure the guys that raced with leaf springs when they went to torsion bars, it did the same thing. And my father's seen the evolution of it. He raced on, I think, leaf springs, coils, torsion bars, but it's evolved back to coils now. But I think the coil spring technology is way better than it was in the 70s and 80s.
Let's take a look at your favorite picture. Pull it out here. We've got you as a young boy and your dad with sideburns. Do you know where it was?
Yeah, I do exactly. This has been my favorite picture as long as probably since the day that picture was taken. It's 1980 at Wheatsport, and I remember this day. And when I was a little kid, before the races, I would cross my fingers for good luck. And it was something I always did. It was I would say a prayer for safety for him and good luck, and I would cross my fingers, and I wouldn't uncross him the whole race. And the race was over, and they walked me across the racetrack to get a picture taken with him. And it's just ironic, in the picture, my fingers are still crossed. And if you could see it in the picture, it's a special picture for me, and just always will be. And I put a copy of this in with him, and it'll be with him forever. And just touches me.
I think that tells the story completely. Thank you, Ronnie, very much.